What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode here of the Mets Central podcast. As the New York Mets are 3-3 now on the season after taking down the Miami Marlins in 2 out of 3 games. Call us prophets, if you will, because we predicted it exactly how it would be. And thank goodness they won that last game, because if they went into the home opener 2-4, and especially in the fashion that that game was trending towards, that would have been just really infuriating to deal with. But thankfully, we do not have to worry about that as the Mets get the job done. Pete Alonso with a lot of heroics compared to what we saw last season, already more in this season outside of the postseason, of course, because I know I get it, Milwaukee and everything. But either way, we are going to break down that series, preview the series coming up against the Toronto Blue Jays, which I'm so excited for this team to finally get back home. And Citi Field is going to be electric starting tomorrow at 3 o'clock for first pitch. So we will be there. Hopefully, you guys will be there as well. And if any of you are there and you do recognize us, say what's up to us if you want to. But either way, yeah, on your way into the live stream, leave a like if you enjoy it. Subscribe if you guys are new to the channel. Leave a like if you're watching on replay, even, and turn on your notifications so you know when we upload or go live. And I hate to steal Carson's line in the intro, but I got to steal it because lately it's been something that has been occurring in the comments lately. If you feel like you're being ignored, you're not. We are just trying to, have our conversation here. We'll pull up conversations, or we'll pull up comments as we are having these conversations and talking about each topic, as long as it's relevant, because there are people that will type about like pasta in the chat, and I'm not bringing that up when we're talking about Clay Holmes. Either way, Matt, how are we feeling as the Mets are 500 now, thankfully, going into the home opener, which it would have been nice to get a sweep. They could have probably got a sweep, but I'll take 3-3.
Definitely an interesting start to say the least. I think I agree with you. I would definitely I'll take a 3-3 start for sure. I would have liked 4-2, to win both the series in Houston and win the series in Miami, or even then, you lose the Astros series but then sweep the Miami series. But listen, it's all right for now. Right now, while not everyone's firing on all cylinders right now, I feel a lot better than where we were sitting here last year after 6 games, where the Mets are 1-5 and just barely beat the Detroit Tigers to avoid getting swept back to back to back series. So yeah, listen, it's going to be good to be back at Citi Field tomorrow. It's going to be the first time, for me, going to a game since Game 3 of the NLDS where they beat the Phillies. I know we were there on January 25th for Amazing Day, but it's finally going to be there just to go back to Citi Field and finally see a game there. And yeah, the atmosphere tomorrow is going to be electric, and I'm very much looking forward to the Howie Rose player introductions, because that's probably always my favorite part from the opening day / the home opener, apart from the actual game. But yeah, it's going to be electric, and hopefully, the home crowd can, get behind the ride of the team and hopefully wake a couple guys up from a few slumpy performances, which we'll probably cover and talk about on this podcast.
Yeah, which we have a lot to get into with that, of course, because of the fact that, well, honestly, it segues perfectly in the game one, where they actually did have a productive offensive performance, which they finally gave us what we've been waiting for. And the crazy part is, and I said it during my post game stream, even then, like, you could argue there was a bit to be desired there, because they were 1 for 6 with runners in scoring position. Maybe they could have got a few more timely hits here and there. But again, it's hard to complain when they got 10 runs, and not a surprise it was on the mound when they got those 10 runs. But either way, it was nice to see the offense actually produce in that game. Every person in the lineup, outside of obviously a couple of pitch hitters there, ended up recording a hit in this game. And it was nice to see the first time that, hopefully, with off the amount of times we'll see it throughout the season, hopefully it's the first of many, is what I mean to say, where we're going to see this offense gel together and really put together a lot of good hits. And that first game, honestly, started off a little worrisome for me, because we saw some of the same tendencies with the offense, where you had that Juan Soto single in the first inning, they don't drive him in. Then you had that Otto Lopez home run in the bottom of the first. The second inning, Vientos gets that leadoff double, and then they don't do anything with it at all to drive him in. We go to the second inning, Peterson gets into a jam, works out of it. But then the third inning, the Mets end up getting a run as Starling Marte gets a home run. And as we progressed throughout the game, the Mets offense was dry for the next inning, but they ended up faring very well in that fifth inning as Jose Siri ends up driving in Luis Angel Acuna with an RBI double. Marte gets hit by a pitch, Soto walks, and then Pete Alonso, the man who was accused of not being clutch last year and rightfully so up until the Milwaukee series, hits a grand slam. What a time for him to hit his first of the year. And then you have Luis Torrens not too long after hitting a 2-run shot of his own. The sixth inning, Brandon Nimmo would get a home run. And after that, I mean, it was pretty much smooth sailing from there for the rest of the game. There were a couple of runs that were allowed late by Danny Young. And then on top of that, there was also a home run that David Peterson allowed. I'm not going to kill him. You're up by 9 runs, throw strikes. Like, there's no reason to be walking batters at that point. But yeah, that was like the one game this series where you could put your feet up on the couch and know they were going to win the game once they were up by as many runs. It got a little shaky in the ninth inning when Danny Young was allowing base runners and just couldn't get the freaking final out. But I don't think anyone was panicking that they were going to lose the game at that point. It just was more infuriating. Like, all right, let's wrap this up here. But yeah, that first game, your thoughts on it? Even though, again, really not a lot to break down because the offense was great. David Peterson, oh, interesting outing. His control was a little bit all over the place. Still got a lot of strikeouts, though. Got the results he usually does. But what are your thoughts overall on that game?
Results man for the W. No, but I thought this game so far, well, in a small sample size, I thought it was their best game all around in terms of pitching. Thought the defense was solid, and then I mean the offense. When you really look at it, like this game was kind of like a carbon copy of a lot of games we saw from last year, where for most of the game the offense wasn't doing anything, but then they of course scoring like a ton of runs in one big bunch, and as we saw in that fifth inning. But it was nice to see Starling Marte hit a home run in the leadoff spot, and we were kind of killing Mendy for saying, "Oh, you know, why you putting Marte in the leadoff spot?" But he hit a home run, so credit to him there. And then it was kind of nice in that fifth inning to see the offense explode a little bit there, and nice also see some production from the bottom part of the lineup where Luis Angel Acuna starts off that inning with a single, then Aura Man Jose Siri with a double. Um, to drive him into for the Mets to take a lead, and then just some really good ABs. Obviously, you got Marte being hit by the pitch, then Soto walking, and then Pete Alonso, who we credit him last podcast for having some really good at bats in the Houston Astros series. It's continued into this Marlins series, and I know we mentioned it yesterday on the post game we did, but Pete Alonso, without a doubt, was easily the MVP of this series. They do not win this series without Pete Alonso. And it's big because, while guys like Francisco Lindor are struggling right now, while guys like Mark Vientos, who we're going to talk about later, is really struggling, and while Juan Soto has gotten off to a solid start so far, nowhere near, what we fully expect of him, but still putting up solid numbers. But, when you have two major cogs of your offense not firing right now, you need a guy like Pete Alonso to step up. And that's kind of like the one thing I really like about this offense so far. While they haven't really clicked yet, and I'm hoping, and we're all hoping that's pretty soon, you at least have a lot of guys in this lineup where you could say, okay, at least if one or two are not, playing well right now and not swinging the bat to their full potential, you have other guys to pick them up, like Soto is right now, like Pete Alonso is doing. And Pete's just had a lot of really good at bats where, I mean, and it's just a huge difference from last year where, when you take a lot of when you take a look at a lot of these at bats, pitchers are, are trying to make him chase, and he's just laying off pitch after pitch after pitch, or fouling off pitch after pitch, looking for his pitch. And coincidentally, like I brought it up before yesterday, but because the home run that he hit against Devin Williams in Game 3 yesterday was on the outside part of the plate, and a lot of his big hits so far this year have been balls that have been placed on the outside part of the plate. So credit to Pete Alonso. He stepped up massively. And then, yeah, obviously Nimmo would hit a home run as well in this game. Not Marte, Luis Torrens, who has stepped up big time since Alvy's gone down with the injuries. He's played very well. And then, yeah, David Peterson, I thought he was good. The only parts I'll say that I didn't like about Peterson's game was the leadoff walks that he had. I think it was because let me look it up. Yeah, in the bottom of the second, he walked Jonah Bride, and then Dane Myers was able to get out of it. And then again in the bottom of the fourth, he walked Derek Bell to lead off the inning. But other than that, I thought David Peterson was fine. I mean, we know that David Peterson usually has good defense behind him because it's natural. It's just David Peterson defense. But overall, he had a solid outing: 6 innings, 5 hits, 2 earned runs, 3 walks, 9 strikeouts, which I really like to see. And then he led up to 2 home runs. But really, I like his repertoire. His sinker I thought was fine. Changeup was fine. Four seamer was all right. The pitch that I really liked though, and probably his best pitch, was the slider, and he was able to generate a ton of swings and a ton of whiffs on that slider. So, and we talked about it before with David Peterson. While he doesn't have the most overpowering stuff, that breaking ball slash sliders really it's really got to be on point. And listen, if Peterson's going to be able to continue this type of form, then great. It is the Marlins at the end of the day, so I'll throw a little caution. But if he's able to build off of this and is able to cement themselves as a really good depth starter for this Mets team, then listen, that's only going to be a positive, especially because we'll probably talk about this too. But with Minai having another setback and looking like he'll be out till late May or early June. But yeah, that first game I thought was solid all around.
Yeah, with Peterson, I just feel like honestly, the only other gripe that I have, which kind of correlates to what you said with the fact that he was, walking a few batters a little too much here and there. I just think his command with his sinker and his four seam was a little bit off at points in this outing, just because he was either off by the plate a lot or he was just leaving it right in the sweet spots for these Marlins hitters to attack on them and jump on them. Thankfully, he settled in as the outing went along. Like, it wasn't something that lasted throughout the entire outing, but it was just something that I thought I would note there because, like you said, though, the slider was just disgusting, just for the exact number: 6 whiffs on 7 swings, just absolutely filthy. Maybe utilize it more because he only threw 12 of them as well during that outing. So maybe upping that a little bit would be nice. His changeup wasn't terrible either. It was really the breaking stuff that carried, and that's the David Pearson way. Like you said, he doesn't have the overpowering stuff. He doesn't have the powerful fastball, the powerful sinker. Get by with some breaking balls, and he'll survive there. And then, one of the unsung heroes of this series, which he also was in game one, was Huascar Brazaban, which he's been an unsung hero for this season thus far. If I was to name two guys right now, maybe three. I mean, Brazaban's definitely one of those guys. Terrence, which we're going to talk more about him, and then Pete Alonso. But Brazaban giving 2 innings of work in this outing. Very good stuff from him. And yeah, I mean, really, that's all there is to game one. It was nice to see the offense get going a little bit, especially with Lindor, who was out of the lineup for the birth of his child, which congrats to him.
Yeah, congrats to
But
Lindor.
do you have anything else to add with this first game? Because, like I said, I don't think there's really much to take away here. It's kind of more the next 2 games where there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we can move on to game two.
Before we do, I think we'll go about this in the order of the timeline because before game two, I think it was before game two, where we got the news that you were talking about before, that Sean Manaea had a setback in his rehab process, as he is going to be shut down for 2 weeks from throwing the baseball as he received a shot. I'm going to be honest with you. This was an injury I was not concerned too much about. And based on how we heard he was feeling, like within the first 7 days, I felt really optimistic that, okay, let him rest for maybe another week or two, and he's going to be back right on time, right on schedule. Now I'm a little worried, and it's not just because of the setback, and I mean, that's part of it, but I'm also worried just because lat injuries are really tricky in terms of timetables and stuff. Now you're probably looking at the middle of May, maybe the end of May for him to return, which is really infuriating. The way that I'm trying to, view this is either way, they've got through one turn of the rotation now without him. Just, it would probably be another 3 to 4 times having to go through the rotation without him. You got to deal with the hand you're dealt. It sucks. It is what it is. But at the same time, it's hard to, and I don't want to, downplay the injury because it absolutely does suck. And I'd love to have Sean Manaea in this rotation. But it's hard to look at the way that this rotation has looked through the first turn through, and then, for Clay Holmes' second start, and say, yeah, Sean Manaea, really, they're missing him a lot right now. That could change in the next few weeks. But for right now, I find it hard to sit here and say, yeah, I really miss Sean Mania when the offense is looking the way that it is, where I'm more missing, maybe some help offensively versus that. But your thoughts on the Mania injury before we talk about game two?
Yeah, look, I mean, it sucks anytime you have one of your key top starting pitchers go out with an injury, and especially in the case of Minai and have a setback. It does absolutely suck. But you know what? This is a team last year that they dealt with Kodai Senga basically missing all of last year, apart from one start against Atlanta where he looked good, but injured his calf and was out for the rest of the regular season. So it is what it is. They just got to deal with it. And you know what? So far, the pitching staff it hasn't been the problem. The rotation has been solid. The bullpen has been solid. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to continue, but listen, and especially with David Stearns, like I trust him, and right now, just with the way the rotation just looks like I said, I'm not saying that's going to continue like this necessarily, but for now, I'm just going to put faith in the guys that have gone out there pitched so far, and pretty much everyone so far has looked solid. I mean, probably the only shaky guy I would say was Kodai Senga, and even then after, because we're going to talk about in game two, but even then after his rough first inning, he pretty much settled down and pitched well the rest of the game. So I'm not too concerned. I mean, the Mets right now are pretty much though stretched on their depth because I mean, right now Paul Blackburn, even though he's not the greatest, he is out right now dealing with injury. So like I was saying, like the depth is like pretty much non-existent because I mean, like we were looking at guys like Canning and McGill as the depth, and these guys are already in the rotation. So really, the Mets cannot afford another injury to their rotation. But I mean, we did hear because Mets players are talking about it. Stalling Marte was talking about it. Lindor was talking about it. Juan Soto was talking about it. That how they would love a certain ace from the Miami Marlins, and his name is Sandy Alcantara, and it's sounding like, and I mean, they're gonna do it because the Marlins just always sell off their top guys. It just doesn't matter if they're good or bad. But I'm telling you right now, when Sandy Alcantara ultimately comes off, when he's available on the trade market, I have a really good feeling that the Mets are going to be all over him because it just fits the David Stearns model. We've heard in the offseason, right before the season started, right before spring training started, that they were potentially looking at a Michael King or a Dylan Cease type to trade for. And we all would have taken both those guys, but the only problem was those guys were basically 1-year rentals because they're going to hit the market next year. Like they're not going to sign an extension midseason because they think that they can go out there and get a long-term contract for big time money. But with Sandy Alcantara, the benefit you have there is he's 29 years old and he's still under team control. He's under team control for this year, next year, and then has a team option for 2027. So I think that's the guy that the Mets should go for. And I wouldn't be surprised if we start hearing rumblings towards the trade deadline, or maybe fairly even sooner, that the Mets are picking up their interest in a guy like Sandy Alcantara.
Yeah, it was weird to hear them openly talk that much after facing him about how basically recruiting him and being like, "Yeah, we we want him here." Listen, I'm not complaining. Do whatever it is, to get him here. The funniest one to me was Starry Marte talking because it's just like he could be a guy that potentially goes the other way or goes out in another deal to, help with the financials of a Sandy deal potentially. So I found it funny just hearing him talk about this trade most of all. But yeah, I would love Sandy. Would you move Sprout in this deal? Because I got to be honest, I would do it. Like I love Sprout. I love the upside and potential. But you're talking 3 years of control or 2.5, I guess, by the time they would acquire him for a guy that I believe has a Cy Young or at least has the ability to win a Cy Young. I I would love this. I would not care what prospects they move to get him.
I wouldn't start with Sproat in my initial
Mhm.
offer.
Oh
I
yeah.
would more look at offering guys like Noah McLean, Blake Tidwell, Jonah Tong, because he's looked really good in his couple he looked good in the spring breakout
Mhm.
game, a couple of the spring training starts, and then his first minor league game. I think he looked pretty good as well. So I would start with those guys, and if Brandon Sproat becomes like a make or break in that deal, it would suck to give up on him, especially since he's going to be in the division for the next couple of years, and he has the potential to become a breakout star and an ace in this league. But For 3 years of control for Sandy Alcantara, I probably would have to move him in that deal just because, like you're saying, with just the control alone and the fact that Sandy, while maybe he won't be the same as his 2022 season, but he's still a really good damn pitcher in this league, and it can be an ace for years to come.
Yeah, I think that I just look at it more for what we've talked about most of the offseason, where it's like, okay, if Sproat is an ace level pitcher, great. But I mean, so is Sandy if you get Sandy. Sandy would be an ace level pitcher. And I want them to try to win in this window where Lindor is like still playing in his prime, which I know it's tough to say with the way that he's played baseball thus far this season, but it's a typical Lindor start. I don't think there's any reason to hit the panic button just yet on that, of course. But um, I just look at it that way where to me, I don't care what prospects they have to move. If they have to move any top guys, I would do it to bring him in here. But let's talk about game two where they face Sandy because that is very relevant because, with this trade deadline stuff and guys that we would want, we'll talk about that more leading up to the trade deadline as we get closer. This game was very frustrating. Game three was probably more frustrating, but in the end, they got the win. So I don't think we're frustrated at all. This game was very frustrating, though, because they did not win the game. So the offense was not great. The first inning was a typical Kodai Senga first inning. He's leaving meatballs over the plate. Xavier Edwards has a double, and then right in Kyle Stower's wheelhouse, a four-seam fastball, a meatball of one that is absolutely tanked to give the Marlins a 2-0 lead. Credit to Senga, who settled down. Nimmo responds with a home run, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe this offense has a little bit of fight in them today, which would be nice. Unfortunately, the next three guys would go down in order, but let's see what happens as the offense maybe settles down. Senga has a fine second inning. Terren's, credit to him, as he's done all season long, and as he did, we'll talk more about it in game three with big the big throw to second base where he caught a runner out there, but gets that done in the second inning. The top of the third inning, Acuna gets a double. Lindor gets his first hit of the season, an RBI single to tie the game up at 2. And all of a sudden, I'm feeling like, all right, maybe there's a reason for some confidence here. Then you fast forward to the fourth inning where this team, like I said in the post game shows, it's amazing how this was one of the better defensive teams in the league last year. And they just made so many mistakes. A rare mistake from Francisco Lindor at shortstop. And unfortunately, after the next 2 outs from Senga, he walks a batter. And then Graham Pauley ends up getting a double there to make it a 4-2 game. I do love what Senga said in the post game where he's like, as much as that Lindor made that error there, that's on me. He's had my back so many times. I had to have his back there and get out of that inning. So I love the accountability there. But unfortunately, this offense just no-showed through the outing. And then, of course, in the ninth inning, we got the typical Mets tease. Soto gets that leadoff walk. Pete Alonso hits into the force out, which could have been a double play there. I thought it was for a second. Brandon Nimmo gets a single, and I'm like, all right, Vientos, this would be a nice time for you to get a big hit here. He flies out, and then Jesse Winker ends up grounding out on one pitch there, nonetheless. An infuriating game. A really infuriating one. The offense just did not show up unless it was Brandon Nimmo. And then, of course, you had Acuna who got a hit, Winker, Lindor. But really, Nimmo was the one with the big hit there. 1 for 5 with runners in scoring position. Kranick gave 3 beautiful innings. That's your highlight there because outside of that, there's really not much. They played sloppy defense, which has kind of been the theme, unfortunately, to start the season. Lindor, just not a good day with 2 fielding errors from him. Kodai Senga wasn't great, wasn't terrible. Like, that's how I would describe his outing. His command wasn't really the worst because he did allow just 1 walk, which is something that usually we're honestly not accustomed to from Kodai Senga. The forkball was lively, as it usually is from Kodai Senga, but it was just unfortunately, kind of the opposite with I shouldn't say the opposite of Peterson, but there was just more damage happening to the four seam and to the cutter compared to when David Peterson was out there, and then unfortunately he didn't have the defense Peterson did behind him. But your thoughts on this game overall? Just I would describe it as frustrating.
Yeah, no, fully agree. It was definitely a frustrating game because, as you said, like the offense just again no showed. I mean, 1, 2, 3 inning in the first, and then like, because I'm gonna talk about Senga now, but my biggest problem with Senga is his fastball, especially early in the games, like it does not have a lot of life and velo to it early in the game because he was sitting at 93, 94 early in the first inning. And I mean, those two pitches that he threw to both Xavier Edwards for the double and then Kyle Stowers for the home run. I mean, 94 mile an hour, middle of the zone, top of the zone, gets crushed for a double. And then the one to Stowers was just middle, 93 mile an hour. And you're not surprised that, I mean, listen, Kyle Stowers is the greatest player in the world, but anyone in the MLB should be able to, match up with a middle fastball, 93 mile an hour. So just two bad locations from Sanga. But other than that, I mean, I thought he settled down after that. I really liked his forkball in this game. I mean, it was definitely his best pitch. Threw it 20 times, was able to generate 14 swings and 8 whiffs for that. I liked his cutter also. I thought his sweeper was fine also. I would actually like to see him throw the cutter a little bit more than the fastball, especially earlier in the games. I mean, because his fastball did get better a little bit as the game went on. Because I remember in the fifth inning to finish that off, I forgot who he struck out, but he threw a 97 mile an hour fastball. So later in the game, he was able, to get some extra velo on that. And I know he has to throw that fastball, but it's just if you're going to have some lower velocity earlier in the game, you have to make sure that you're throwing it with much better accuracy and location. Because, like as I said, if you're throwing a 93 mile an hour fastball middle down the zone, it's going to get crushed all day, every day. But yeah, as you said, when Nimmo hit that home run, you would think that okay, maybe the offense does have some life to it, but then Luis Angel Acuna has that double. Lindor singles, hits a single, brings him in to tie it up at 2-2, and then as you said, the offense from there wasn't great. Senga was better, and then it was really that fourth inning where Lindor just, he just didn't have a good day defensively out there, and two bad mistakes from Francisco Lindor. And at least I like the accountability though, because as you mentioned with Senga, he said that he has to have Lindor's back on there. Lindor said after the game that he went up to Kodai Senga and he basically apologized. So I like that both of them are taking accountability. It just shows that this team is, I want to say focused, like, but with the way they're playing, I wouldn't say they're totally focused, but at least like they're taking accountability. They're not making any they're not making any excuse for the poor play, and at least that's what I like, and that's huge difference compared to what we have with our hockey team. But we don't have to talk about them. But yeah, just an unfortunate fourth inning. And then, yeah, I mean, pretty much after that, Sandy comes out in the he comes out to the fifth inning, and then I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, listen, you're down 4-2, but but now Sandy comes out their best pitcher. I'm like, you have to now attack this bullpen. And then again, and it was weird because I commented on the post game that you did for this game, and the Mets really had better at bats against Sandy Alcantara than they had against the Marlins bullpen, which was just one, just weird, and then two, just overall frustrating because the Marlins bullpen is not good and overall their pitch is not good. So the fact that you're having piss poor at bats against this bullpen was just not a good look. But then, yeah, I mean, pretty much for the rest of the game, it was just 1-2-3, 1-2-3. They had a couple chances here and there. As you said, they had the tease in the ninth inning. I didn't like that last at bat by Jesse Winker. It just, and he's had a lot of at bats where I haven't liked his plate approach, where he's just been too reliant on the first pitch swing. And for a guy that we've seen that he really gets in the groove when he's more taking pitches and really works the count, that's unfortunate. He had more better at bats in the third game. I would say probably his later two at bats in the game where he ended up drawing a walk to bring in a run. But yeah, just an unfortunate game in that game, and then but also credit to Max Kranick, who's just shown that he's a freaking dog so far in the start of the season. Coming in bases loaded, getting Jordan Alvarez and Christian Walker out, and then pitching 3 innings in this game also to rest the bullpen because as we saw for Game 3, the Mets needed as many arms in that bullpen as possible. So credit to Max Kranick on that one.
The thing that's crazy too about Kranick's outing too is that he only threw 22 pitches in those three
Yeah,
innings.
no.
So yeah, really credit to him for alleviating a lot of a lot of pressure on the bullpen in this game. But yeah, it's really just annoying when you look at the names in that bullpen that they couldn't get hits off of them. But there's one thing that happened in this game that will transition us perfectly into game number 3 here, because game number 3 was the most stressful game of the season thus far. And the fact that we're 6 games in and we already had to deal with this much stress, so much so that I texted Matt to do that post game yesterday by himself when they were losing, because I said, I'm going to say something completely irrational. I can't do it. I just cannot do it tonight. I was going to let him do it. When they won, everything was fine and well. But if they lost that game, I would have said something so irrational that I couldn't do it. Something that happened in game 2, though. I forgot which at bat it was. I believe it was Vientos' second at bat. He hits a ground ball that's bobbled at third base, and he stops right before getting to first base, not hustling down the line. And Lindor, the coaching staff, talked to Vientos and said, like, that can happen, basically. And when I heard that and all that stuff, I was like, all right, there is no way. Like, Vientos is going to put some piss and vinegar in his veins come tomorrow or come today, because we heard it the day after. But unfortunately, that was not the case at all. But with this game, the first inning, it was nice to see back-to-back hits. Juan Soto gets a single, Alonso with a double, 1-0, something that hopefully we could get accustomed to a little bit. I just want to talk about the offense before talking about Clay Holmes. But yeah, it was just really stressful the entire game until that 8th inning, where Luis Torrens comes up the pinch hit, which, to be honest, I did question a little bit, because you have other options on the bench. I was surprised they went right to Torrens there. Credit to Mendoza, credit to Torrens, gets that single. Lindor gets that single. Soto hits into that fielder's choice, but Pete Alonso ties this game up. And when he did, there was no doubt in my mind they were winning this game until the bottom part of that inning, where it was stressful. But thankfully, the Mets in the 11th inning, first in the 10th inning, they have to piss us off by having 2 base runners with no one out. They don't score. Thankfully, they end up scoring in the 11th. You have Winker that walks a batter in. Vientos hits into a fielder's choice to make it 6-4. And then, the questionable decision in the 9th inning. But the offense, would have liked more from them still there. But the main thing that I want to talk about, of course, is the ugliness defensively. And a lot of it was from Vientos, which, again, after what happened in the prior game, you got to be as locked in as you possibly can. And to see him have multiple miscues, that throwing error that he had that scored that second run for the Marlins, which I feel so bad for Clay Holmes with the defense thus far. He has not benefited one bit. There was a fly ball in the outfield that at one point, Tyrone Taylor's got to make the grab on that play there. I think that was in the same inning, actually.
Yeah, same inning.
But just overall, so infuriating with the defense in this game. Juan Soto at one point was like booting a ball out there, and I was crashing out with the amount of mistakes that were happening in this game. I really was. And, even in the 8th inning, when they gave us that heart attack, Edwards had that leadoff hit. He ends up getting to third base because of free passes, basically. And then Stower strikes out. And then you have Brett Beatty, which is a horrendous throw to the plate. Thank you to Video Review for overturning it. Otherwise, the Mets would have lost this game. Torrens, great defense. Thank God he was in the game to throw the guy out there. And then, yeah, the Mets benefited off some bad defense later on in that game as well, which was nice. A lot of questionable decisions, though. Danny Young coming into the final inning there when he's the mop-up guy, and Oscar Brazban warmed up after one batter. And I would argue, and I know you brought this up in our post-game last time, but after looking at the box score again, I would have left Jose Butto in the game, because Jose Butto was only at 15 pitches in the he was at a bit more, I think. But either way, his pitch count was relatively low. No, it was 15. Yeah, it was 15 pitches. I would have maybe gave him a third inning at that point. I get that he doesn't do well after a couple more innings, but to go to Danny Young there was just
It it made no
absolutely
sense.
stupid. They won the game though, so all is fine and well.
Yeah, it made no sense, and that's the one thing we talked about yesterday on the post game. But Carlos Mendoza has really had some iffy decisions in terms of both bullpen management and substitutions. I mean, we talked about I forgot whether it was the second or the first game, but the one where he subs in Brett Beatty for Luis Acuna, even though Acuna had a
That
hit
was the
earlier in
second game.
the second game, that one made no sense, and just going to Danny Young there absolutely makes no sense. I mean, with the Budo point, I agree with you that it's 15 pitches that I would be more inclined to leave him in. I still kind of stand what I said though that just based off last year, he tends to worsen off when he gets deeper into his outing. But I mean, if it was 15 pitches, then fine. Listen, I would have much rather had a 15 pitch Budo out there than fucking Danny Young. That's for sure. And then to the point that I was saying before, I'm like, because I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, if Danny Young's pitching, that means Brosman then he's definitely not available because Brosman should be the first one out of the pen. But then you see him warming up after the first batter. I'm like, what the fuck, Mendy? Why you gotta piss us off? Why you gotta make us sweat out game six? That just made no sense. And I understand that the first guy was a lefty lefty. It was lefty lefty, but you cannot just go lefty lefty based off the fact because Danny Young's not even a lefty specialist. The guy just sucks. Like he's lucky that he's even on the major league roster because Dedno Nunez wasn't ready to make the roster. So luckily they were able to get out of it. I mean, credit to Brazaban because as you said before, he's been a really under the radar guy in this bullpen so far, and just for the whole team in general. But yeah, with the Vientos point, it's I genuinely I feel bad for the kid. I feel bad for the kid because this is really his first time in the major leagues where he's going through adversity and the first time where he's really going through a major slump like this. Because all of last season, like because he was pretty much all of last season, he was hitting the ball hard, he was hitting for home runs, he was hitting for power, and he would have occasional like small slumps here and there. But there was never a point last year where he was this bad to play. And he looks lost right now, both at the plate and on the field, and which is the worst thing because the thing with Mark Vientos was always was that he was never a good glove, he was never a good defensive player, and to give him credit last year, I thought he was actually solid in the field. I didn't, there was never a point where I thought he made like a major mistake. I mean, there was a couple of grabs that he should have made in the playoffs, but there was no major mistakes that like what we saw in yesterday's game with the one where he overthrows Torrens to miss the throw to home plate, and then the one where he thought it was a foul ball, but then it wasn't a foul ball. Those mistakes cannot happen. But I think now is the time for a guy like Lindor, Nimmo, Pete, the leaders on this team, to just take Vientos aside, put an arm around them, and say, listen. It's all right. You're going through a slump. This happens, but you cannot let the bad the bad at bats go into the field because right now just overall with the bad defense it's hurting them. And Vientos eventually he's going to turn it around at the plate. He will. He has too much talent not to, but like I said, the guys, the leaders on this team, Lindor, Pete, Alonso, they got to go to him and say, listen, it's all right. It's cool. Calm down. These things happen. And also, like I know we clown Phillies fans for doing this with Trey Turner and how he got a whole Netflix documentary on it, but I think maybe tomorrow the fans of City at City Field, if Vientos does play, because I brought it up yesterday that maybe you should sit him tomorrow, and I know maybe with the off day today they probably won't do it, and just because it's the home opener and guys like that want to play, it's a special game. But I think maybe the crowd tomorrow at City Field when Vientos comes up for his first at bat, I think they should give him a standing ovation just to like let him know that listen, kid, we're behind you. We know you're struggling, but we know the talent's in there.
Yeah, I don't disagree there. I mean, he's not going to get booed. I can tell you that because the only guy that I think warrants getting booed right now is Danny Young. Uh, but yeah, it just the more that we're going through these days, the more I'm okay if they switch things with the lineup. I really am getting to a point where I am very okay if they want to put Vientos up in the 2 hole, move Soto down a spot and put Alonso in the cleanup spot, Nimmo down in the 5 hole, and I get that the numbers are what they are with Vientos in the 5 hole. Like, it's not that big of a difference compared to him in the 2 hole. But at the same time, I think that, there's a difference with the way the lineup is constructed right now. And the fact that he was moved down to 6 is also was very interesting in that last game of the series. To me, I don't see how that helps him. I think he's a guy that needs to be moved up the lineup because, like we've talked about, he needs to see more pitches. If you put the threat of Juan Soto behind him, he's going to see more pitches. Right now, Brett Beatty was his protection in the last game.
And that I would rather have a cone as my protection than Brett Beatty.
Yeah, it just like it's not going to do anything for him at all. And I get that he should be, at least drawing walks then because he's not going to get pitches to hit. But at the same time, just no protection there. And it's just making things a little bit more difficult for Vientos. I think he's in his own head now, like you mentioned. But hopefully he could turn around. I have faith that he will, but it's definitely something where, after this series, if the offense looks the way they do, they definitely have to consider. I think it gets more to a conversation where, okay, maybe you really do need to switch the lineup here because I'm not there yet, but I think you really have to if things go south this series because Pete Alonso was the only one that did anything in
Yeah.
this game. I mean, you had the Juan Soto hit in the first inning. He did nothing after the game. And Juan Soto had probably wasn't great this series, which is crazy to say, but that's because of how high of a standard we have him to. I just would like to see him get a little bit more hits. Like when he's making contact with the ball, I'd like to see him do more damage, is what I mean. Because I'll take walks. Do not get me wrong. But when he's making contact, a little bit too much soft contact and a little too many ground outs right now for my likings. But I have no panic there. Lindor, I have no panic, even though, again, it's infuriating the slow starts. Nimmo's been Jekyll and Hyde, and then the bottom of the lineup outside of Luis Torrens of all people is just a joke. I mean, Hayden Sender's put together better at bats in 2 plate appearances than Brett Beatty has this entire season thus far. That says enough to me.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not hitting the panic button with the offense, but I'm not thrilled one bit. I'm really not thrilled at all.
No, like, and I definitely think that I don't think they'll make any major lineup adjustments tomorrow for the series unless, like, again, they go the series without not being able to hit off Blue Jays pitching. Then I think we might see a change. And I think, yeah, I agree. And we talked about it before, that if they're gonna make a lineup change, you move Vientos up to the 2 hole because even last year, like, it was a small sample size, but he batted pretty well out of the 2 hole. 260 average, 296 OBP, 506 slugging, 803 OPS for a WRC plus of 124. So he hit pretty well in that 2 hole. And as you mentioned, if you put real protection behind them and not a fucking cone and Brett Beatty, if you put protection behind them in Juan Soto, naturally he'll get more pitches to hit. And hopefully with that, he makes more harder contact, he gets more confidence, and then we'll able to see, the Mark Vientos that we know and love. And not only that, but I think it could also help Juan Soto because as of right now, with Lindor being basically an automatic out every time he goes up there, and he's had some horrific at bats, I'm not worried about him because this is just what Francisco Lindor does. Like, give it a couple weeks, and he'll be freaking hitting for average again. He'll be hitting for power again. It's just frustrating. I don't like it, but we just have to accept it for right now as a Met fans that this is just what Lindor does. But because right now, like when you look at Soto right now, I would like to see a little more power. I love the walks that he's drawing. I love a lot of his at bats because I mean he's just a machine up there when he's conducting his at bats because he rarely swings at stuff outside of the plate. I'm sorry, outside of the zone. But when you really look at opposing pitchers, like they're pitching to Soto so carefully. Like they're making sure not to leave him anything over the plate. And that's why a lot of his at bats have either gone on walks or light contact because everything's either low, just a little high, or off the plate or in over the plate. He's not getting anything to hit. And it doesn't help also, with Lindor always being out, because if Lindor's never on base and you could just say, okay, if I walk Juan Soto, fine, because then while Pete Alonso has been hot, Pete Alonso is not every time going to hit a home run there. So there's not that threat of, but like I was saying, if Lindor gets on base, then there's the threat of Soto getting on base, then naturally Soto's going to get more pitch to hit because you don't want first and second no out with Pete Alonso up there because we know that he's capable of doing major damage, and then right there you're down 3-0 early in the game. So I think it would benefit both of those guys, and then also if Pete slots down one more into the traditional cleanup hitter, the cleanup slot, that could also help them too. So yeah, like you're saying, I don't think they'll make any adjustments going into the series, but definitely if the offense looks stagnant again, then I think we'll see some adjustments to the lineup.
Yeah, and that's like I get that, Alonso looks locked in, so it's hard to argue that you should move him, but at the same time when if one guy's clicking and the other guys aren't, then that warrants a change. Like Brandon Nimmo had a solid first half last year and he was in the leadoff spot and the rest of the offense wasn't going. So they shifted things around and, it ended up being what it was. I don't think it's a big difference though if you move Alonso to the cleanup spot at all. I
No.
really don't think, he still has Soto in front of him. He still has Nimmo behind him. I don't see a big difference if they were to switch them. That's just my opinion, but again, I don't think they're going to change anything unless it's like you said, it really gets to a point where there's a huge cause for concern. And as we keep getting later in the season, but time will tell on that. The last thing I have to say on the series is fuck the camera guy in that third game that teased us multiple times with it looked like the Marlins walked off the Mets multiple times at the end of the game there. Thankfully not, but the camera guy, I hate you for it. Thank you, Gary, for at least making me feel a little bit more comfortable with that.
He also did it in game two with the Luis Torrens one. We
That's
thought
right.
we thought Torrens got a hold of one to tie up the game, and it was just a fly out to center field. So yeah, fuck that camera guy.
Yeah. That's the last thing I have to say. Do you have anything else to add with the series at all?
Fix the defense, get the bats going, and pitching. Just keep doing what you're doing.
I actually lied. I do have one more thing too that I want to say about the series. We talked about it last episode. Another series down. I'm over Brett Beatty. Like I
Oh
really
yeah,
am just over this whole experience. He's not good at second base. He's not good at the plate. What is he bringing to the table?
cheerleading.
That's literally it. He is bringing cheerleading at this point. It is exactly how things ended with Dominic Smith here, where cheerleading, poor defense. At least Dom gave a little bit offensively. Beatty's just there's nothing, and I'm just at a point where I can't stay patient anymore. I just can't.
No.
It's more than just. It's more than just 5 games. It's more than just 14 at bats. It's 170 plus games now, 550 plus at bats where it's the same thing. And you could argue this is his worst. This is worse than it's been in previous years. Like at least
Yeah,
in previous years, the first like week or two, he was showing a little something to where, all right, maybe it warrants keeping him around. Right now, there's literally nothing to take away and say, yeah, you know what? Maybe. Because last year, at least he hit a home run early in the season, was getting a couple of he had a couple multi-hit games. Just looking at the box scores right now. He had a hit in 4 straight games, didn't get a hit, and then he had a hit with a couple multi-hit games in there. I mean, he had 3 hit game against Atlanta. Was this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? I mean, he had 7 straight games with a hit, 9 out of 10 with a hit, and then it ended up getting to what it did. But I'm just over it. I really am.
yeah. The guy's terrible. He's not a major league baseball player. It is what it is. We tried to give him a chance. We said that he fully earned the second base spot with just playing spring training, but once again, he's just shown that he's a spring training merchant. and that's who he is because every time he comes up against actual solid or reliable pitching, he looks like he's never swung a bat in baseball before at any level of baseball. The guy's genuinely lost the plate, and like you said, it's not 5 games, it's not 1 year. The guy's had 616 at bats at the majors, and every single time. And like I said, this year's arguably it's worse because at least for the last 3 years that he's been up here, he's at least had a week or 2 weeks of a decent spell where he's hitting the ball hard. But this one, I mean, this start's just been terrible. And then factoring with the defense as well because Luis Torrens bailed him out yesterday. Because I'm sorry if you can't make that throw, then you just don't deserve to be in the majors. But I mean, his K rate is at 28.6%. His let's see, his ground ball percentage is 60%. His fly ball percentage is at 20%. The guy just 0% barrel rate. The guy doesn't make hard contact. It's everything's either hit into the ground or it's a light pop up in the infield. Like he doesn't take pitches. He swings at pitches down the middle and misses. It's just the guy's lost. And listen, if the Mets let him go and he somehow turns it around and is able to cement the major league spot somewhere else in the majors, then cool. Congrats to him. But it's not going to work here. And freaking, I'm genuinely begging for Jeff McNeil to come back now because it's
It's
terrible.
that bad.
At least McNeil can provide at least solid defense and a league average bat. Brett Beatty's he's a cone out there. Like he doesn't I mean not only he doesn't offer anything, he offers negative value to the team. He's a net negative. So as I said, if the Mets let him go and he's able to find a spot somewhere else and is able to develop, fine. But it's not going to work here. And Luis and Acuna better get a majority of the playing time while Jeff McNeil's resting up and getting ready to come back.
Yeah, I was gonna say because at least Acuna gives good defense and good base running. It's like the same conversations we had with Kako, where if it works somewhere else, great. It's just not happening here. Like it's time to move on sooner rather than later. And once McNeil's back, I have no reason to believe it won't end up being that way, assuming this continues. And you mentioned how he hits bad pitchers. He's not even doing that right now. Like the Marlins were not throwing world beaters out there. He
Mhm.
had a hit against who? Cal Quantrill maybe or Soriano, whoever it was. Way to do your best Chris Kreider
Yeah,
impression there with
that
that
part.
meaningless double after all the damage. Um, outside that, I mean, who else did he really face? Henriquez. I'm trying to even remember the other pitchers. Connor Gillespie. I mean, he can't even do it against guys that are on the Marlins. And I'm supposed to expect him to do this against any other team? No, I'm sorry. It's just I'm over it. I really am.
No, it's
But
it's time to cut bait with him. He's done.
yeah, it's just to a point where it's ridiculous now. Uh, the only other thing that I forgot to complain about with the series, uh, in that third inning, where was Jeremy Hefner in the last game? Where was Jeremy Hefner? Like, why did he wait until the damage was done to step out to the mound? And I get I shouldn't care because they won the game, but he just does this shit all the damn time. Where was Jeremy Hefner? Either way, um, we'll read some comments, preview the Blue Jay series, and then get out of here. So let's see what's going on here. Happy the Mets won yesterday, but had no business having difficulty with a bunch of no names on the Marlins. Hope we could carry the momentum from the win at home. Perfectly said. Yeah. I mean, they had no business winning yesterday's game at all. But now that you did, you better carry momentum into City Field with the home crowd behind you and put on a good performance because I did not pay as much money as I did for tomorrow's game to watch a stinker like I did in 2019 and like I did last year. And I would love for the Mets to make this trade. The Pirates aren't trading Paul Skeens, though.
No, no.
Pirates,
Eventually they will probably because they're not going to pay him, but it's not now because he has way too many years of control on the room to trade him now.
yeah, and honestly, I can tell you right now when he does become available, because the Pirates won't pay him, then we could have that conversation. The conversation is going to be the same thing that I am going to say right now. In the world, by a 1% chance he becomes available before then, you trade whoever
Yeah.
to get him. Like he's the best pitcher in baseball, arguably. Even though he didn't help me on the sports book yesterday. It's all good. But either way, at least Kreider has stats to pad. Yeah. Brett Beatty doesn't even do that. All right, so the Toronto series coming up. Unfortunately, Max Scherzer ended up getting hurt because I was so excited. I was licking my chops at the thought of being at the home opener and Max Scherzer being on the bump against the Mets tomorrow, and the Mets just absolutely feasting on him. But poor Max Scherzer has a little bit of a thumb injury there, so he's not going to be ready to go. Kevin Gausman will be thrown their way, a guy that the Mets almost acquired back when he was a free agent, but did not end up being the case as he elected to go to Toronto. We got an ace off, though. Kevin Gausman, Tyler McGill for the first game of the series. Former Met Chris Bassett versus Griffin Canning in game 2. And then game 3, you have David Peterson versus Bowden Francis, that is. And yeah, this Blue Jays team has scored a lot of runs to start the season. Former Met Andres Jimenez off to a hot start. Future Met Vlad Guerrero Jr. off to a pretty good start. Bo Bichette is starting to rebound. And then Santander's also been pretty good for them. So, Blue Jays team, I kind of slept on going into the year, off to a pretty good start. It's going to be crucial for the Mets offense to wake up now because this is a Blue Jays team that puts up a shit ton of runs.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just looking at the pitching matchup, I mean, Gosman, Bassett, and Bowden Francis. I mean, these are all guys that have started the season well. They all won 6 innings in their first couple starts. Let's see. Yeah, Francis only let up 2 earned runs in his start. Bassett only let up one run in his start, and then Gosman let up 2 earned runs in his start. So couple tough pitching matchups for the Mets in this series, but overall, I mean, yeah, when you look at it, the main strength of the Blue Jays is going to be their lineup, and I mean, as you mentioned, Bo Bichette has gone off to a pretty good start so far. Hitting 310, no home runs so far, but 3 RBI, 754 OPS. Anthony Santander and Vladdy Jr., two guys that have kind of struggled so far. Vladdy only hitting 222 with a 623 OPS. No home runs for three RBIs, and Santander 222 average. No home runs, 1 RBI for a 559 OPS. So those are two guys that have struggled, but you can never take your eye off them because they could break out any time. And then surprisingly, Andres Jimenez has played well so far. 308 batting average, 3 home runs, 6 RBIs for an 1100 OPS, which is surprising because we know Andres Jimenez has a good glove out there at second base, but I'm expecting his bat to cool off just a little bit because those numbers for him, I'm pretty sure, are unsustainable. But I guess we'll see.
We'll
But
find out.
yeah, we'll find out. But it's going to be interesting, especially with McGill getting the game tomorrow for the home opener. Then Canning, hopefully he could not bounce back, but continue off his pretty good start that he had in Houston, and then have David Peterson, results man. Let's see if he can continue his good start from Miami into into a series against a tougher lineup against the Toronto Blue Jays. So yeah, it's gonna be a 50-50 series, but I think ultimately, or at least I'm hoping that the Mets take a series W here, and I'm probably predicting them to take 2 out of 3. The games I probably say they win, I'll say they'll take the first game that tomorrow. I think they'll lose the second game, and then because it's David Peterson's results, man, he gets the results. I think they'll win the third game. So that's what I think will happen.
Where with the amount of former Mets that are just off to hot starts
Yeah.
right now? Like Conforto's off to a great start. Flores, although Flores is like Mr. April at this point. I feel like every year this guy just goes off to start the season. Jimenez, who you mentioned, Harrison Bader would lead the Mets in home runs if you want to puke for a minute. Um, I do have to ask a question though. Do we cheer Vlad tomorrow?
No, you can't cheer Vlad.
We
You
don't
can
cheer
maybe
him.
give him a nice little golf clap, but you can't fully cheer him.
Like, for the recruiting process, though, like, you might have to cheer him.
Mm, I don't know. I don't know. The question I will say is because I wonder if Max Scherzer is going to be there in the dugout because they're going to introduce all the Blue Jays player as well. So because I mean Bassett's going to get introduced too. So what kind of reception do we think Bassett gets? Because I think it's probably going to be 50-50.
Yeah, I think I don't know if Bassett's gonna get a lot of,
I'll give him a little golf clap.
I
'Cause, I mean it ended poorly, but for the majority of his time as a Met for his first year, I thought he was solid.
I'm going to be silent because, like you said, it wasn't a bad, Mets tenure, but I can't forgive him after I went to that, wild card game where he pitched. Not that it was necessarily his fault, the offense was putrid, but, um, I don't know if the crowd's gonna give a reaction one way or the other, mostly with him. Scherzer's getting booed, though. Scherzer is 1000% getting booed, and I will be partaking in those boos because genuinely fuck him with the way that it ended, genuinely fuck him with that wild card game. I appreciate him picking the Mets. It only took an absurd amount of money, but I appreciate him picking the Mets, but I have to boo him just because of the fact that it ended just so ugly with his time here and just the excuses he would make when he was here. Uh yeah, and also I've gotten to a lot of Twitter fights over hating Max Scherzer, so I have to stay kind of on brand there. Uh yeah. So I'll
Andres
be booing him.
Andres Jimenez will get cheered because he was a vital part of that Francisco Lindor trade. So thank you, Andres. And then for your solid 2020, I guess I'll throw you a little clap there too.
Underratedly, Springer's going to get a lot of boos just because it's George Springer.
Uh, I got no hate for
Absolutely
the
not
Mets.
like we did for Rick Nash. Would I cheer Brady Kachuk? Yes. Yes, I would. And that's
Brady
not
could
I don't even think the Rangers are getting him. At least the Mets have a chance of getting Vlad. I would cheer Brady Kachuk though either way.
see.
Cheer on the future guys.
I would love Vlad on this team, but with the
The
money
money he's
that he's
asking for though
with
is
the
a bit
money he's
ridiculous.
apparently asking for is ridiculous. I mean, he is asking. I mean, not he's not exactly asking for Soto money, but he's pretty much asking in the ballpark. I mean, like 600 million for Vlad Jr. Like, I know Steve Cohen has a lot of money and he wants to win and he wants to spend, but I don't know. I don't know. I think if any team has probably the best chance, I would say it's either the Blue Jays or the Red Sox, just because I think the Red Sox are desperate to get that one, like, really, really, really big bat and that one big superstar. I can see the Red Sox dashing out
Yankees.
money. The Yankees too could too, but I don't know. We'll see.
This is probably a better conversation for another time, but like as much as I want Vlad, yeah, with the numbers with the amount he's asking for, I like we got the superstar in Soto. I wouldn't hate if they just filled in the rest of the lineup with the money instead. Which again, that's a conversation for another time. But just early thoughts there. My prediction though with the series, I will agree with you. I think they take 2 out of 3. I think they win tomorrow's game. I'm also trying to be optimistic because of the amount of money that we just dropped to go to tomorrow's game. Um, I think that they win game 2, and I think, even though it is results, man, it might be a hot take. I think they lose game 3. I
Yeah.
I just get this feeling they're gonna absolutely shell Bassett in game 2.
We'll see.
Also, Carson's gonna be at game 3, so I don't know if it correlates, but he was also at Jose Quintana's brutal game last year.
Yeah,
So
against the A's.
yeah, I'm just I'm piecing that together a little bit here.
Oh God, but yeah, I will say this though before we ultimately get out of here. Um, the Mets right now, they have no excuse for me to not win this division. With the Braves starting 0-7, which is very nice to see, I have no sympathy for them. I don't like their team. I don't like their fans. Maybe I like a couple individual players on there just because I respect the individual talent.
Nah, fuck them.
But as a whole, no, no sympathy. They've caused too much pain to me all these last couple years. 2019, putting our playoff hopes in the coffin. 2021 passing us. Then they won the World Series, and then 2022 stealing the division away from us at the last second. yeah, I feel no sympathy for them. And yeah, I mean, listen, the Phillies are going to be tough right now. I mean, they've had a very good start. They're 5-1 currently, but listen, I picked the Mets to win the division, and for me, I'm sticking to that. The offense obviously has to turn around for that to happen, but yeah, no excuses with how bad the Braves are and the fact that no team has made the playoffs after an 0-7 start. Mets got to win this division.
At the very least, finish second.
Yeah.
Like that, really no excuse then at that point. Yeah, you have to be a sick person to be enjoying the Braves 0-7 start. Put me on Mark's Ebola list then. Uh, Anyway, though, we're gonna wrap it up here. Thank you everyone for tuning in and watching. Tomorrow's post game, and a couple of them will be a little bit later on after the games, just because of the fact that uh, both of us are going to be in attendance for a few of these games during this homestand. Potentially, even I mean, for myself at least, maybe 5 out of 6. I don't know. I have to see there how many I end up going to, but either way, thank you everyone for tuning in and watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you guys are new to the channel. Turn on your notifications so you know when we upload or go live here. And we'll see you guys in the next one.